See who else we got tonight. Paul Banner, third in line
Uh,
tonight.
Hi there. Who else you got?
Uh, Dave Ramsay.
Okay.
Hey,
Tell
Paul.
me who Dave Ramsay is. The name means something to me.
I used to, when I was down there, I actually worked in the store. Father Bissett ran the store, and I actually worked in the store with Father Bissett.
Okay. All
I
right.
think I was a year behind you. I came in 62.
All right. That would be 2 years.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
You
I
were,
came in 60.
oh, okay, okay.
Is that when you came, Bill? I don't remember. It seems to me that your ins and outs were a little staggered, but
Well, you mean me?
yeah, you.
Yeah. We were in the same class together.
I know we were in the same class together, but
There was the sixth year that I had to take some time off at
yeah,
Thanksgiving time.
I have that sort of straight, but um,
And there's
it looks like Stas.
Josh.
Yep.
Is that right?
He's sort of nodding.
He doesn't hear us yet.
I hear you.
Oh, okay. You're not reacting, so
I had to change my camera.
okay. Did you guys meet last month?
Yeah, yeah, we did.
Okay, I apologize
2
for
months. 2 months.
2 months. Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that
You
makes
know
me feel
how it
better.
is when you get to be our age.
I don't know anymore.
Okay,
Hi,
Norb,
Norb.
are you able to hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you see me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can see you. So
Oh,
don't
okay.
touch that dial.
You can hear me and see me.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
There's Jim Blanchard coming online.
Hi, Bill.
All right.
And let's see who else. I wonder, I can't remember anymore who else I heard from. Oh, Jim Marfia is going to join us a little bit later on, around 7:30, he said. And Al Wamhoff has a Knights of Columbus meeting tonight, so he's not going to be able to be with us. So ours will be our own private little conclave.
Hmm.
Which of you guys wants to be Pope?
But we don't get to elect a pope. Did you say Charlie Blanchard's on?
No, Jim Blanchard.
Jim Blanchard. Okay, thank you.
And Stas vanished from the scene.
He's getting a haircut.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Talking about haircuts. That keeps my head warm.
Hey, Dave, were you there when we used to get haircuts down right across from the store?
Yeah, yeah. I remember that, yeah.
I
All
vaguely
I can remember is that guy did a fast job on us.
Oh, yeah, it was quick.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that. I know I got a haircut all the time, but I scarcely remember going to the barber room.
I remember that one barber who came in with a lot of Canadian singles and decided to pay us out in the difference, whatever it was. I can't even remember how much we were charged for haircuts.
Oh, wow. 50 cents, I think.
Oh, it was, well, at any rate, I remember he was going to give us our change in Canadian money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and word got out real quickly. So one of the, I don't know who it was that came in and demanded that he pay us in American currency.
Well,
Okay.
at one point, there wasn't much difference in the exchange rate.
Right, yeah.
Maybe there was at that time. Maybe there was a big difference. That's about an American.
And I think that's Frank Unger that's got his name, but no voice yet. I remember last time he had problems getting logged in as well. There he is, Frank.
Can you hear me?
If we can hear you, we can't see you.
Yeah, I know that my thing is I haven't got it fixed yet. So, well, at least you guys don't have to look at my face, you know,
Thank you.
the other side of it.
That's, I hope you take that with a pound of salt.
Well, anybody got anything to lead off with? What's everybody been up to in the last couple months?
I have a little something. Unfortunately, though, I've misplaced the article. I got something from the Sulpicians. You know, these were the teachers at St. Mary's on Paca Street.
Ah,
Out that
okay.
after all these years, they're starting up teaching higher level seminarians there.
Ah,
And I've lost the article, so the detail isn't there, but they somehow found my name, and I've been getting these things, and it won't be long, and they'll be wanting some money. Goes.
Weren't the Sulpicians at St. John's?
No, I
Who
don't
was
think
it?
so. I don't think so. I mean,
I don't
can't
know.
say that authoritatively, but I'm pretty sure that it's
I,
sufficient.
I,
They're
I think they were at St. Mary's in Baltimore.
Right.
well,
Right.
yeah, St. Mary's in Baltimore. I bet they're back on Paca Street, and the main buildings were torn down, so they've
Well,
got sort of a a building or a facility there that they can use.
well, are they competing with Mount St. Mary's Seminary? Which is
I-
not downtown anymore.
I have no clue.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm just telling you something I found out.
Yeah.
Actually, I lost the article, but I'm sure I'll be getting another
Yeah.
month or so. So I'll let you know a little bit more by then.
Were the Sulpicians there when you were there, Frank?
Pardon?
Were the Sulpicians?
When I was, it
Yeah.
was owned by the Sulpicians, and it was,
okay.
yeah,
That's what I thought.
it was a few years after I left where it got closed down.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, Mike Murphy, we can see you, but we can't hear you. So I don't know if you wanted to. I think if you hit your space bar, that's a trick from Norb. That may turn on your mic.
Well, you have to hold it down when you're
Oh,
talking.
you got to hold it down.
Right.
I had mine was mine didn't go through right away either, but I found that on the bottom right hand side there was a symbol for the with the microphone with the line across it, and if you hit that, you got your audio.
Oh, Alt A will turn on audio as well, or turn it off. Alt A. And Alt V does video.
Hmm.
Well, I see somebody there.
Chief Technological Officer.
It means like
Okay, you got a picture, don't have sound, doing all day.
I'm somewhat limited in the use of these things. I can handle about 85-90% of it will, but when it starts getting really fussy, I got a tech guy I call, he takes care of it.
How good are you with phones?
Pardon?
How good are you with phones? That's where the tech really kicks in.
Oh, they're not so bad. They're simpler. I had an AT&T phone and it was starting to cost too much, and I saved $30 by going to the Lively Jitterbug 4, which is 4G. And it runs much more simply, but it has all the features that AT&T does. It just doesn't jump into all these crazy routines, like when you're on a phone, after a while, you can't even find out, you can't even see where you were. So yeah, it's about $30 a month cheaper and it's easier to operate.
Mr. Bill.
Yeah.
There, I've got audio.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello, Bill.
Hi there.
All right. The real Bill.
Well, sort of.
Sort of hazy. Just like the 60s.
Yes.
Oh, you got that bright window in back of you. We can't see you. You're washed out.
I thought it was a halo.
It's probably better that way, actually.
Well, yes, thank you.
Okay, with you, the question is, are
okay.
you down south or are you back home here?
I've been back in Michigan 3 days now. And I can see it was a mistake. Hmm.
Well, let's just mosey on. Mike Murphy he's back again.
He's back again.
We sort of lost touch with him, as you saw in that last alumni notes, because there was a problem with his email and his internet provider, so he wasn't getting any of the messages about what was going on in the real world. And took him a while to, I guess they ended up dumping Wow World or whatever that was called. So anyway, he's halfway back in touch with us now. At least he was able to get on into the Zoom tonight.
Well, it's that Michael's still having trouble there getting the picture, but the occasionally, but no sound.
I have no idea, Mike, but it looks like your microphone is turned off on your end.
Oh, by the way, in the last alumni notes, now lost track of who the guy was that was in the class of '64 that just sort of reappeared. What the heck?
The one who died?
No,
Oh, okay.
not the one who died.
Okay.
Griffith, Charles Griffith.
Yeah, right. He was in one of the infirmarians, and I kind of remembered him. He sent along some memories, fond memories of poking people in the rear ends with under the orders of Sister Christopher. I may have been one of his targets, I think. Boy, that penicillin was really great. And Dick Galant was the other infirmarian and I think Mark Gardeski from our class wasn't he? Does that sound familiar to any of those class of 66 guys?
Hmm. Don't remember.
I don't either, but it doesn't sound, it sounds possible.
Bill, I was the infirmarian in our class.
I didn't see the who said that.
Jim Blanchard.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was kind of wondering about how the whole legacy of infirmarians went. Did did they always have that there as long as Sister Christopher was around,
I
or
believe so. I
Yeah,
don't remember the last year in which she was at St. Joe's, but she was there close to the end.
right? Yeah,
he was
I
there
didn't
close to the-
realize that they had named Christopher House after her until I saw
Mhm.
that in one of the I forget where it was, one of the newsletters or something like that.
They did name it for her?
Yeah,
Oh, really? Okay,
Mhm.
I didn't realize that. Mhm. I was going to say jokingly that Sister Christopher was there at the beginning too.
not far. I think she went back to the 40s, I think.
I think so too. She was,
Oh,
Jerry Willing was an infirmarian from our class.
oh, okay. Let's see. As long as we're on that topic, Paul, you were the sacristan?
Sacristan.
Sacristan.
Oh, okay. And was there anybody from the class before, from, I guess it's the Frank Murphy or the Frank Unger class?
Yeah, I had it for a year. Yeah.
Oh,
Frank,
Oh,
and
okay.
prior to that, it was, I'm forgetting the name, Lion, from, I think,
In that too, I think.
what's
With-
that, Frank?
Yeah, Greg Lyons was.
Greg Lion, that's the name.
Oh, that name is familiar. Huh.
Actually, I worked in the infirmary for Sister for a couple of weeks. We had like everybody got the flu. Just tons of people were sick,
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd come in and help her. If Monsignor Moran asked me to help her for a couple of weeks with a lot of detail stuff that she just didn't really have time to chase,
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't a bad experience at all, What surprised me is I was around these guys all the time and I never caught the flu. You'd think you'd get it, but
Right.
I didn't.
What were all the various roles at St. Joe's? Remember, infirmary, maintenance, sacristan, the store, what else?
Prefects, dorm prefect, table prefect.
That was just fourth year.
Athletics.
Mm-hmm.
there was the Master of Ceremonies. That was me.
Oh,
Mhm.
I think we got appointed to that. Was it our second year that we, or was it the third year?
That was the
Third.
third year.
I can't remember if there was anybody in ahead of me in the Dick Galant Frank Unger class. I remember the first job that I had to do was train the new acolytes in what they were supposed to do and say, and the let's see, and then let's see what else was in that job.
That was still Latin, wasn't it, Bill?
Oh yeah, yeah. And I know we had to arrange when all of the special solemn high masses were being held. We had to make sure that everybody had their correct rubrics. Remember the rubrics? The red printing about when they were supposed to be saying
Oh.
something or doing
Oh,
something.
yeah. Mhm.
And I guess we just generally had to make sure that the ceremonies were in order.
Right.
Oh, yeah. The other thing was we had to arrange to have altar boys for when the priests were celebrating the Eucharist. Somebody was on routine, or we had several people that were assigned to be on duties, and go in and be ready on a flash to run in and get their cassocks on and be ready to be the altar boy for that priest. We had to make sure that Monsignor Barton was covered over in St. Henry's.
Mhm. Where did the priest say mass if they weren't in the chapel?
Well, along that auxiliary chapel there were several altars in there. And
I
then,
don't remember. Yeah.
yeah, and for
Huh.
St. Henry's Hall, there was a chapel that
Right. I remember
Peter
that.
Martin used.
Right. Huh. I don't
When did they
remember.
build the auxiliary chapel?
Oh, that was built the year before I arrived. So that
Okay.
would have been in 56. They put the addition on the chapel the same year the gym and St. Henry's were built. They did all that building in the same year.
Hmm.
I vaguely remember, and again, my memory was refreshed from some of the old copies of the recorder that were dug out, that they had to put an extension on the organ pipes in St. Henry's, or in the wing of the new wing of the chapel, because I guess what the problem was that people over in the new chapel couldn't hear what was the organist was playing, and so like as an afterthought, they thought, well, maybe we ought to put those pipe organs. Remember, I remember them now being on the one wall, and I remember later on that the family of Kaiser, the guy who drowned on the senior day,
Yeah, that's the one.
right? That it was his family that installed that. That was, what I remember from the seeing the old newsletters. I didn't think of it at any other time.
Oh,
And I
When you were
remember,
there, were there students sitting in the auxiliary chapel for mass?
oh yeah, there were several rows of pews, and sometimes I think the sisters would come up from the kitchen area and pop in there for some of the ceremonies.
Well, when that chapel was well, actually, when we were freshmen, the first 3 years used the old chapel, and then the seniors and the college guys were in the new chapel.
Yeah,
right.
No, the new chapel, my recollection is that there were 4 altars in there. Maybe there were 3, but seems to me that there were 3 along the south wall, and then there was one at the back. But maybe there were just 2 on the south wall. The my memory is not as good as it was 6 months ago. I knew all this stuff back then, and I have all I can do to come up with the word that I want to use, and if it's a name, it's really lost. So there was a posting, and I'm not sure how frequently it changed, as to who was from the student body who was serving for which priest for a and I don't recall whether it changed by the week or and it might have been weekly. It seemed like it was fairly frequent. I think it was more frequent than monthly.
Right. Yeah.
The
That was the master of ceremonies that had to set up
Okay.
the make sure that there were enough altar boys in that schedule to that kind of made me think too. I kind of vaguely remember that we had to altar boys were needed also for the convent. Get over there.
Yes, they were.
Senior Shaw always did an early mass over there.
Oh, okay.
And Father Guzikowski then would do a later mass.
Oh, I kind of vaguely remember having to make sure that somebody was there for those to handle that. And I sort of remember going over there once myself, but I can't swear to it. And how you got there was there a sort of a hallway off the tunnel to get into the convent, or did we have to go up to the
There was a second
kitchen?
tunnel. There was a second tunnel.
Yeah, there's a tunnel from the main building to the convent
Oh, okay.
near the kitchen, because that's why I was there, so they could come over to work in the kitchen.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I guess, yeah, that makes sense.
You know, this is kind of an aside with that, but it pertains to it in a certain way. Something that surprised me when I went to Europe and when I was in Italy, two places I know for sure, and it was quite common that the very famous in Florence, the famous Duomo, there was a church that's right behind it. It's called San Croce, and it had numerous side altars. It could have had 10 in the church, and each one was named after a famous Italian or dedicated to a famous Italian. And then when I went to Padua and went into St. Anthony of Padua's church, which was it was maybe 15 miles from Venice, I have never seen such a gaudy church in the sense that it had so many side altars, and the decoration and stuff like that was amazing to me. So having those altars like St. Henry's Hall, you're pretty correct, Paul and Bill, what you've described, as I recall, it wasn't uncommon. Even in the Vatican, they have side altars too.
Mm.
I mean, it's a big place, and I know that the Pietà, when I saw it, I'd seen it two different times, once in New York and once in Rome. And when I saw it in Rome, it was by itself, but I think there was, there were altars still all around the outer part of the church.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I remember in my parish that we had the main altar, and then there were like two little side altars.
Right.
I can't, that must have just been a traditional piece of architecture. There were never enough more than an assistant pastor in there that would, and he always ended up getting the early, the 6:30 mass every day, and had to cover the early masses on Sunday. But there wasn't any demographic need to have two side altars. But it was just, I'm just guessing that that's the way they made churches in those days. I do remember in Muskegon when St. Francis opened, and Jim,
Yeah, that was my home parish.
Did they have side altars as well?
They did
Or
not. Mm-mm.
Well,
Not at the old church nor the new one.
the chapel and the seminary had two side altars.
That's right. That's right.
One
I
was
can
dedicated
understand
to
that
Mary.
I don't remember of a priest saying mass at those altars, but
Yeah, me either. Oh,
but they were there.
Yeah, one was dedicated to Mary and the other was dedicated to Joseph.
Right. That's
And
what I
then
remember.
they would have in the services when they had Holy Thursday,
Right.
and they took the host and that, they would go to the side altar. I think usually to
Right.
Joseph's side.
Mhm. Yeah.
it's amazing to think, and I guess Norb, you're the only one who might have remembered uh, when St. Henry's opened, and before that, I mean, weren't the oh no, I'm sorry, I got my people mixed up. In 45 or 46, that's when they had as part of the deal to have the Dominicans come in and take care of things at the seminary. They insisted on having the convent built.
Right.
But before that, the nuns lived on the second floor where the infirmary
Right.
ended up
That's
being.
right.
Right.
So things must have really been crowded over there.
It
Well,
was a
yeah.
big deal when St. Henry's Hall. I remember the bishop was taunting that because it was the DDF fund, and he really pushed it. I think it was 56 it was open or something like that. But it
I
was
can
a
tell-
big deal.
I can tell you when it opened. It was January of 57. So you're right, 56, 57. My first year there, it opened and there were enough rooms for fourth year students to be there. So fourth, fifth, and sixth, which continued after every year, I'm sure, were in St. Henry's.
Mhm.
And then after that, those students went to the wing of the chapel, the new wing.
That's right. I
We
remember that.
were always in there.
Hmm.
And can you imagine the population of the seminary, if you remember from my book, there were 200 students there. The building was meant for 100. And when it opened with over 100 students in 1921 or so, they exceeded 100 very quickly.
Mm.
And so in the 40s, well, 50s, I should say, that's when they decided to make arrangements for expanded enrollment. And and that's when before I got there, they added the fourth floor because there was enough room, airspace between the third floor and the roof to put that fourth floor in. That's why there were corrals on the third floor for students too, because that was generally that whole area where the corrals were for the upperclassmen. And there was a pool table in there and other things like that's before my time, okay? But I remember reading that. And that's why the rooms, there were private rooms there for the upperclassmen, which were not private when I was there because we had to double up just to have the space, to use the space for sleeping. Did I make myself clear on that?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I remember that. That's the way I matriculated through it.
Yeah, okay.
You're correct.
Mhm.
Now, I've lost track of when the last or the first group, was the main building no longer being used for dorms, or everybody was over in St. Henry's? So does anybody remember? I'm thinking maybe Jim Blanchard or
That was after my time, Bill, so
oh, okay.
I'm guessing it might have been around 70, 72, 73, 74, somewhere in there.
That's
So they
on,
had no high school?
They did have high school, but all the college students were over at Christopher House.
Right, right.
So they
So
were
high-
able to fit
all the high school kids were at St. Henry's.
everyone over at St. Henry's where they'd have their individual room.
I could have lived at home because I live right down the street from Aquinas College as I grew up. I mean, I could get there in 3 minutes.
Good, you forgot.
You know, one of the big gaps in our
I'll call you back in just a few minutes, though, okay? I won't stay on long. Okay, thanks, Jeff. Yep, bye.
one of the gaps in our archives has to do with the guys who went on or who were in Christopher House. I don't recall having found any photos of Christopher House or any of the things that were going on over there. The newsletters at some point in the 70s just became the high school or the prep school or whatever it was called.
Right.
But the actual what was taking place over in Christopher House just is sort of lost in there now.
The prep school was sometime after I was there, Bill. So again, that would have been 73, 74, somewhere in there. But in going to your comment about Christopher House, they did have something at one time, but somewhere along the way it was lost or thrown out or something, because Father Charlie Hall had prepared some kind of listing of all the students that had attended Christopher House, and it never made it to Angela, so it somewhere hit the trash heap.
Now, at some point after they closed the seminary, the St. Joe's, if you were interested in pursuing a vocation, did you go over starting in Christopher House, or did they, I just never paid that much attention to, how you got in or what happened to you, the guys at that point.
Well, what I remember, what I understand is that the high school kids at St. Henry's they were mixed. They weren't, you said at prep school, and that's probably accurate because they were not dedicated seminarians, but they were still they were still urging the guys that were there to pursue a priestly vocation. And then it probably and I think the seminary closed in 82. And then after that, I think anybody that wanted to go to seminary started in college. And more recently in Saginaw Diocese, the bishop didn't accept anybody until after they had a college education. Before they
Who
went to
was running that, Norm?
I'm sorry.
Well, okay, I kind of understand what you're saying, but all right, so all this gets phased out. Well, who's kind of overseeing what's going on?
Where?
In the bishop's office or what?
Oh, you mean the seminarians?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh yeah, there's a director of seminarians in the diocese, and then what now, since they don't go to seminary until after college, it's a major seminary, basically. It's 4 years
Well,
of
that's
theology.
true.
Well,
And so-
in Grand Rapids, I can tell you for certain that the vocations director is responsible for all of the seminary students, and they do have some college students who are in seminary, and I think it's the St. Meinrad's.
Oh, in Indiana,
Yes.
St. Minard's, I think, yeah.
Or I know that at one time some of them went to Minnesota as well. But the vocations director he's kind of the overseer of all those students as well as the students who are at the major seminary,
Yeah, right.
which is in the Chicago area.
Mundelein.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and our guys from Saginaw Diocese, it all relates to the bishop, where the bishop wants them to go.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And our diocese, I think most of them go to Sacred Heart in Detroit, which is very traditional.
Hmm.
Anyway, I'm going to leave you guys, but it's good to be with you, and I'll see you next time.
Okay. Good to
Okay,
see you,
Thank
Norb.
you, Norm.
See you,
Yeah,
Norb.
take care. Yeah, bye.
Is there any interest in discussion regarding the upcoming conclave?
Well, the only thing that I thought or that I saw like today was like what could happen with the use of Latin in the certain, and it focused a lot on what has been taking place in Detroit. Obviously, I was surprised that there were so many churches or parishes in Detroit that were still using the Latin Rite. And the new archbishop said he wanted to cut that number down to, I thought it was an incredible number, like 100 or something like that. And he wanted to cut it down to like 4 or 5.
Yeesh.
And so the whole discussion taking place in the conclave kind of revolves, or that's how they spun it off into what was taking place in Detroit. So it'll be interesting, I think, to see what happens, with that whole thing, and how if it's going to take a big step backwards or what.
Did you guys know that there were 3 ranks of cardinals?
No.
I didn't realize that.
There's
Yeah.
bishop, priest, and deacon.
Ah,
And I was looking at the
Oh, yeah.
cardinal elector list today, and I saw that, and I was really kind of mystified by that because I'd never really heard of that. But
Well, I know you didn't have to. You'd have to be a cleric to be a cardinal, but if you were chosen, it didn't mean that you had to be ordained, I believe. I may be wrong.
I think
all the cardinal electors now are ordained.
Okay, but at
Yeah,
one time,
but-
you could be a layperson and
Yeah.
still
Mhm.
be a cardinal.
that's.
At one time,
I'm sure you're correct on that.
I mean, the Pope could, the Pope appointed the cardinals.
Mhm. And the other thing that was interesting is that the United States had the second largest number of electors behind Italy.
I didn't know that.
I think Italy had like 17, and I think the United States had like 13.
Wow.
But the majority of these individuals are still kind of based in Greater Europe.
Does any American have a chance? Archbishop Kupich from Chicago?
I don't think so.
I forget there's maybe it's Archbishop Dolan that has been mentioned as, very much a wild card that most of the cardinals in the States don't have that kind of profile internationally. And Dolan had some, and I don't remember biographies here at all, but he had some positions at the Vatican and in Europe, and maybe with one of the colleges in Rome, that that his profile was that he knew enough people that might be considered, but way down in the ranks. That it's not likely that anybody will be considered from the States again.
Is Dolan from the East Coast? Is he Philadelphia?
Who?
Dolan? Cardinal Dolan?
New York.
New York.
But he was originally, I think, from St. Louis, wasn't he?
Oh, that sounds right.
You got traded from the Cardinals to the Yankees. Huh? But the person that was Frank that you're Frank Marfia that you're talking about, I understood that he came from like Oregon or somewhere
West
like that,
Coast.
Washington
Somewhere.
State. Pardon me?
Somewhere on the West Coast.
Yeah, and he was supposedly an expert in what do you call it, the sex scandal, but somehow he got there was some controversy about the payments or something that were that the diocese was doing there or something. I know that's a few years back, but
that goes back ways. Well, the Americans are considered very conservative, is that an overstatement?
No.
Especially if you're from Detroit.
But not so much the new Archbishop in Washington, D.C.
He is a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's McElroy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I've got my.
He's
He is a great cleric. He's very well trained. He's very intelligent. He's very progressive, but he also is it is not out in left field. He is he's balanced. He's in some ways he's a little bit like Francis in that he's dedicated to the church as a people, not a congregation. That his perspective is that type of thing, which is very much what Francis's whole apostolate was, especially once he was handed the papacy that he could sort of play with, but take his extend his vision of the church. And his vision of the church was the church is the poor. It's the people that need us. Of course, I'm very high on Francis. That he's been one of my models for a long time. That I started reading biographies of him not when they first came out, but not too long after that. There's a writer, and I can't think of this person's name. He wrote a biography fairly early on in Francis's papacy, and then he started a second biography, and he was I think he was based in Rome, but maybe not. No, he might have been from London or up in that area someplace. But
Was Francis a compromised pope? During the conclave that elected him, did it take multiple days before?
he was elected on the third day.
Third day, okay.
And he wasn't, as I understand it, in the early balloting, he was second.
Oh,
And as things progressed, after 2 or 3 ballots, he rose to the top. But it took, I think it took 3 days before he was elected. But this biographer was starting to work on a biography of Francis, of his apostolate in South America, and then carried that on into becoming pope. And I don't remember exactly where it ended there, but as he was getting started, one day when he was in Rome, somebody walked up to him and said, the Pope wants to see you. Just call up to his office. And he said, and Francis interviewed, discussed this. He made himself available on more than one occasion to
Benedict, right? Benedict was yeah.
And so the history that this biography goes back when Francis it goes into his childhood upbringing, whatever, but he was from, it seems to me that he had roots in Italy, but I might be wrong about that. But mostly he was in Argentina.
Yeah.
And Argentina had the same problems with clericalism and very kind of rigid ecclesial requirements and strict liturgy and so forth. And And there was a lot of abuse from, priests and bishops, and as a bishop in Argentina, I forget Francis's earlier name, but he was he came down pretty hard on a number of priests who were and monsignors, bishops who were not doing a very good pastoral care of their people. There were a number of scandals, and so he had kind of had that background before, well before he became Pope. But his personal his spirituality, he moved in that direction a long time ago, and if you want to talk about the Lord doing stuff, well, Francis was prepared, not on his promotion or his objectives, but that the molding of his ministry in South America provided, a basis for what the way he's dealt with people all over the world. It's I trying to think. There was a discussion of something earlier this week, I think. No, this last week, and I don't remember who the obnoxious person was that in the Roman Catholic hierarchy that someone like Donald Trump, and I thought, Francis will welcome all those people with open arms and without prejudgment, because God loves all of us, just more than we can appreciate, and that we always had our list of sins, and God never worried about those things. That she that created life and all the wonderful stuff that we see where it's wonderful, that is that's a manifestation where maybe it worked a little bit, but God's way ahead of us. And, you know, God loves us because he loved us into being. And we don't have to be good to earn that love. That we can't earn that love. It's an enormous gift that you know that it's there. Our liturgy doesn't do justice to it.
We were just in South America a couple months ago, and when we were in Buenos Aires, one of our guides knew Pope Francis when he was just a parish priest in Buenos Aires, and she said he is a wonderful man then, and she was so happy that he was elected Pope. So it was kind of interesting to hear that kind of commentary about him.
Yeah, I don't think, in some respects, he hasn't changed. Except so much more so.
Now, he was 86 when he was elected. So he was not a young man. He was 76. He's only Pope for 12 years. Right?
Yep.
And he was 88. So, I mean, typical. I can't remember how old Benedict was when he was elected, but it seems like the popes are getting older.
Well, they don't want one individual to be in there forever.
Yeah,
And
I don't want somebody in their 40s probably, or 50s even, who might be Pope for 40 years.
There's one cardinal who's 45, but I don't recall
He's the
what his
youngest.
name is or what country he's from.
Yeah. I think that Francis, his big thing was to include everyone. He felt welcome around him, which is why he has spread so many cardinals around the world. You know, I think that's part of his philosophy, like in the Far East and everything, where he's made these new ones, is to literally bring that part of the world into the church. And that's the part that's growing anyway. So it's going to see what happens. Probably not this time, but in the next 10 or 20 years.
I need a little refresher on the history of popes in the modern era here. I remember when Pius XII died, and I was working at our parish that summer. And we had to dig out all of the paper, or the crepe, or whatever that was called, when they had to deck out the churches in black.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody remembers.
Kind of, yeah, I know what you're saying.
Right.
That was true for, I think, even if you had a funeral for certain people, I think, too. You're right.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I recall is somehow the janitor at the parish had to dig out the mourning stuff, and he had this old box that went back to the time when Pius XII, or whoever was right before Pius XII died, and you had to put out the mourning draperies or whatever for that period. And that was like in the 30s or something like that when Pius XII was installed. But then he was I'm getting them kind of mixed up in there. Maybe it was when Pius XII died that we had to get that would have been it when John the 23rd, or when Pius XII died, And then he was followed by John the 23rd. And that's when we had to dig out the old stuff that was put out there when whoever it was before Pius the 12th passed away. And that was really kind of strange. Now, after John the 23rd came Paul the 6th.
Paul
Right.
VI.
Now,
I saw Paul the Sixth.
pardon?
I saw him
Oh, okay.
at the
Well,
Vatican. Pardon me?
help me out with his nationality. I thought I saw something that
I think it was Italian.
yeah, I thought he was Italian, just never occurred to me. But then there was some reference in one of the media about uh, uh, John Paul II being the first in the modern era that didn't come from Italy.
That's
Right.
correct.
So you said, somebody said, yeah, I think it was Dick Galant, that Paul the Sixth was Italian.
He was definitely Italian. His name was Giovanni Battista Enrico Antonio Maria Montini.
How did you
That's a
memorize all
mouthful.
that? That's like a litany, Bill. That's good.
That's
He
like
has a
I got
photographic
Sperry
memory.
220.
Jeopardy questions. Jeez.
Good job. That's impressive. Was he from Milan or somewhere like that?
No, he's from what was he from? I don't remember. But remember, John Paul the First. He lasted what, a month and a half,
Yeah,
something
very
like that.
short.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's funny. I don't recall when Paul the Sixth became Pope. Was it another one of those summertime things that we got back to the seminary and we had a new Pope? Or does anybody recall the circumstances in which he took over after John the 23rd? It's sort of a missing piece of my fragmentary memory. So all of a sudden he was there.
Well, he had to finish the Second Vatican Council.
Yeah, I remember that. And then when he passed away, John Paul the First.
Right.
I can't remember the years that
He didn't. He was like a
Months.
month and he died or something.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Yeah, yeah, he was, I think, like 33 days or something.
Yeah, it was real short. Have any of you been to the Sistine Chapel? Seen it? Been in it?
Yeah,
Yes.
a couple of times.
Too. Wow, that's impressive. The thing that I was lucky enough to see it and go in, the thing that surprised me, it was bigger than I thought. I mean, reading about it and the like, I tell the story that the way I walked into it, you had to go down a staircase, which was that the Pope used because it was his office or something. And I'm just about ready to open the door, and I see this sign that had said "Watch for pickpockets." And I'm not kidding you. And as soon as I looked up, I was mesmerized by the ceiling, and I could see how that could happen, because you just, at least for me, I just kind of lost it. I was in awe. One of the things that impressed me was how big it was, in the sense of the largeness of the actual painting. I mean, I heard about it all my life, but I didn't prior to that. But I didn't think it would be as big as it was.
I had just the opposite of feeling about the Sistine Chapel. I thought it was smaller than what I thought it would be.
Really. I described it as it was like a high school gym or something, or school gym in the sense of its size. It didn't seem real big to me. Was there anything in there? I mean, there was nothing when I walked. There was nothing in there. I mean, it was just the chapel, but it wasn't. I don't even recall seeing where the altar was. So.
When I was there, it was so full of people, the only thing you could
I-
see was the ceiling.
What's interesting about the Sistine Chapel is I was watching the news the other night, and they said that that was basically built and designated to be the place where popes would be elected. That's interesting.
So how many people have seen a pope? Bill, have you seen any?
I have.
Okay. Well, you said you were in Rome 2 different times, correct?
Right.
Way to go.
I saw him ride by in the Pope Mobile as he was heading into St. Peter's.
Oh,
Me and
okay.
about 50,000 other people.
Yeah. Right.
But I was within probably 20 feet of.
Hey, Cheryl,
Hmm.
which pope did we see? Was it Benedict? Which pope did we see? Benedict?
John Paul came to Hamtramck, remember?
Yes.
So I had bus duty for that.
Oh.
I can't remember what his tour was like when he was in Detroit. Vaguely, I know that he went to Hamtramck, but I can't remember other spots that he was at.
Did he say Mass in the Silver Dome?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I know my aunt somehow got tickets, so Sparky Anderson ended up seeing the Pope. So
Was she disappointed?
oh. One of the things it's an interesting story and a long story but somehow she befriended Sparky Anderson, and she was a Mercy sister. And when she died, Sparky had left, and he was in 12 Oaks, California, wherever he is, and he called and wished her well. I thought that was really impressive.
Hmm.
Another thing that I spotted in the media today was how is that all of the people in the Vatican have to take a vow of secrecy about all the proceedings. But that got me to thinking about all of the people who just have to be there to get things done. You have this historical image of the cardinals being all locked up inside there, and they're shut off from the rest of the world. But somebody has to feed them, and I assume that that's probably some of the sisters that take care of that. But it just kind of made me wonder about who else has access to the cardinals during this whole process. I mean, you think about the Vatican Guard or the Swiss Guard. Are they inside while all this debates are going on? That's a little bit of the whole conclave process that just hasn't. Maybe it's because nobody knows, and nobody will tell what's going on inside there. One thing that I saw the conclave finally. It was on over the weekend on
Netflix,
one of those channels, and the one thing that struck me was how, and I have no idea again whether this is how, at least the ones that showed up in the script would refer to each other by their first names, and I got to thinking, I never gave that a thought. What are bishops like, for example? do they know each other by first names, or how do they refer to one another or address one another? Same thing with when you get into other ranks in the hierarchy of the church. Are they on a first name basis, or how do they get along? How do they know one another? Kind of like the seminary. We know the first names of people in our own classes, but beyond that, uh, it becomes something of a mystery.
Well, think of the fact that I don't know what percentage of them have been in Rome and went to school there. It's more likely that they may have been classmates too. I mean, you know, that then they went back to their country, wherever they're from.
I saw references in a lot of those biographies to what you were just talking about, going to uh, classes, graduating from the pontifical schools. Is there just one pontifical school, or is there several around there?
Well, I don't have an idea. I don't, you know.
I think there are multiples, but not that many. You know, you have to remember that all of the bishops, and I'm sure this happens in the third world, that the bishops go to Rome every 2 or 3 years to report to the Pope and to report to the what do we call
The bursar?
no, the whole the big committee that is the Vatican. I can't think of the word.
Korea?
What's that again?
Korea?
Curia, yeah. That
That's a good one to think of.
and no, so all these people have a firsthand encounter with the Pope periodically. You know what the degree of that relationship is you know, it's kind of individual, but it's not that you're strangers. You know, there are a few people here and there that you have encountered in your travels to Rome and back. The not particularly from another country, but you know, within your own section of the country that you're in, your archdiocese, or you know what however that structure is, that you know, we're, you know, and especially in this day and age, we're much less isolated than people were when we were in the seminary.
There are 5,600 living Catholic bishops worldwide. That's a lot of bishops.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Now, a lot of them are retired, or they're auxiliary bishops, so they're not the.
You mean
Mm-hmm.
the clerical designation is bishop?
Yeah, that's a lot of men. That
Oh.
But one of my good friends, the next priest here in Chicago, went to Lucerne. I think it's called Lucerne
Yeah,
in
that's right.
France, and he was sent there by the Diocese of Chicago. Didn't speak a word of French, but he had to learn The first 2 months, I mean, because all the classes were in French.
Hmm.
So I mean, I think back then, didn't they select the diocese selected the young men who were sent to Rome or wherever they were sent for?
Yeah, Jim Van Wert, who was a year ahead of us, Norb maybe remember him, but he was from Saginaw Diocese. He went to Lucerne, and there were people that maybe Saginaw sent there.
That was a good experience. He learned French and
Yeah,
got a good education, but it
yeah.
was tough the first couple months because they didn't speak French.
Well, I think that I have the impression that going to like in European schools is not like going to American schools where you got a class and you kind of do your thing.
Maybe you're right.
It's kind of different. It's more set up for well, you get a reading assignment and then you see your tutor and you talk to your tutor every so often and that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
then you're studying for some kind of seminal exam at the end of whatever you're studying.
So are we going to get together this summer again, Bill? Gebhard?
Oh, yeah, what? Me?
Are we going to get together later in the
Hey.
summer?
The invitation is always open.
Okay.
Very
Just
nice.
tossing out the idea.
Yeah, we'll see if we can come up with a date.
We're talking about August or September, probably.
What's good for you guys?
That would be best for me, but I'm just one person.
You're hosting what's good for you, Bill.
Yeah.
I have no life. Just you tell me. Yeah, we did it. What was it? September of last year?
Yeah, we moved it from a late August to
Yeah,
mid-September. That was fine.
yeah. Well, I'll see if I can come up with a date and or a couple of dates and put it out there and see who we can get
Okay.
day yay and day to.
Yeah, the last 2 years, for instance, the lottery that you picked for dates, I just couldn't make them, and
Well, send me the dates you're available, Frank, and then we'll work around that.
Frank, it's your call.
one date I'll be all right. It's just the way it works.
I suppose if we get it out there early enough, that it may help. I don't know.
Right.
Can I ask a kind of a independent question? I want to ask it to Stas.
Okay.
The area that you were, when you were in I guess you were in the army, you said you were guarding on the Black Sea or whatever?
Right. Air Force.
Air Force, sorry. Is that area occupied by the Russians now or whatever? I mean, is that part of the contested part of the war?
No,
Oh, okay.
not at all. Now, the city we lived in was Trabzon, and that was part of our, what was it, Latin or Greek, one of the things that they mentioned that city. It's also one of the cities that killed a lot of the Armenian people.
Really?
Yeah. What they did is they put them on a raft, or rafts, plural, sent it out into the Black Sea, and then torched it.
Jeez. Wow.
Yeah.
You're talking about the big thing right around the First World War.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of Armenians it was terrible.
The father of one of my friends, his wife's father was from Armenia, and the part that was kind of amazing was at the end of World War One, when all of this genocide was either about to take place or was in progress or whatever. His story was kind of interesting. His job was, one of the many guys who were in charge of loading up boats on the docks in wherever the docks were in Armenia, and he got his stack of stuff slung over his shoulder, walked onto the ship, and never came off. So he stayed on that ship until it landed in England. It's kind of, I always thought that was kind of an interesting story, that here was somebody who was like just one generation ahead of us, and how his in-law got out of Armenia at that time. You don't hear too many stories like that anymore, except in this country where people are getting in and just lie low and be quiet, don't cause trouble, and then obviously I can't even remember when it was that they he moved to Detroit from New York. So it's kind of an interesting when you talk to some of these old timers and what they recall. It's kind of like the Holocaust, and when you run into people who survived that, their stories of survival is really kind of interesting. That's another generation that's disappearing on us. So anyway, that was about the only thing. It made me think back too that I think when he moved to Detroit, he moved into an area that was right nearby Southeastern High School, where I taught in the late 60s. And the one thing about that neighborhood was it was not built for automobiles. The houses were very close to one another. You didn't have a garage because there wasn't anything. Might have been a shed in the back where you kept all your tools and took care of your horses or whatever. But the houses there were all jammed together. You didn't have to worry about parking on the street because nobody had anything to park. I kind of remember that too with my own parents. I know what got me on that whole train. My wife and I went to the Michigan Central Station this past week to see all the renovations that had taken place over there. And that area is where at one point my grandparents lived.
Yorktown?
Yeah, right over in that 23rd and Junction is where they lived, even though they were German. But I have pictures of them at the Palmer Cabin in Palmer Park, which is quite a ways north. It's like a 6 or 7 mile. It's a good 7 or 8 miles from downtown Detroit. And the only way that you could get from where they lived over near the train station was to hop on a trolley cars and then go into the downtown area of Detroit and switch over to the trolleys that went northbound. And that was like a 3-hour ride, just one way to get from across the city of Detroit at that point. So it's really, we're really kind of spoiled when you think about how easy it is to get around. In Detroit itself, back, it had to have been a good 30, 40 years ago, when they would tear up the streetcar or the street pavement to resurface, a lot of times they'd uncover the old train tracks.
Right.
And I can remember the area that I lived in near Belle Isle. If you're not familiar with the city of Detroit, that's like on the far east side of Detroit. That area around there, when I lived there in the late 60s, you could still see train tracks. that were just showing above the street level. So that was what, 60 years ago, 1968, 69. I'm losing track of my math in there.
About 60, 70, 65 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's kind of interesting to, but we found it very interesting to go through that station and just be in awe of how grand it was, and how it had fallen into total. It was torn up, and they had problems with the weather that came just in through into what there was of a ceiling, and would pool in the basement floors. There were 2 levels in which they had ice built up, and the stories over there where the kids would go play hockey in the basement of the abandoned building. I remember getting in there just one time in all the time that I've been in Detroit, and that was in the early 70s, just before it closed down. And it was just totally empty at that time. They did have train service, like 1 train a day might go in there, and that was the extent of it. It was really, you go into this huge area and there wasn't anything around there going on. So it was really an interesting experience to get over there. Well, anyway, that's my random thought for the time.
Hey, Bill, sorry to interrupt, but I have to leave. So
Yeah.
good to see all of you. Stay healthy.
Yeah,
Right.
we gotta get out of
Thank
here
you.
too.
Yes.
Okay, Bill. Good to see
So we're
you.
going to hear from Bill Gebhard
No,
and about the date. Is that how this is going to go?
yeah, I'll get it to Bill Yagerlener and
Right.
he can
Okay.
get it out.
That sounds good. Thank you
Yeah.
for doing that.
Yeah.
So,
All righty, time to call it in, and there's no Tiger game tonight, so love those Tigers, by gosh.
I'm telling you,
Keep it up.
yes, indeed.
Okay.
All right,
Nice
See
kids.
you
call.
guys.
Good to hear
Good to
from
see
Take
you
you.
all.
care, everybody.
Be safe.
Good to see you.
All right.